Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our share in Dirshu Bahalacha. We should have a little extra time today. We are going to finish Siman Shin Pei, but I think we got through most of the complications of it. So today we're going to start with some Pirkei Avos, something which we haven't done in a while. Let me just get my timer working over here. Okay. All right. So we're holding in Pirkei Avos. We were in the middle of Perek Bey's Mishnah Aleph. So the Tana continues. These are all ma'amorim of Rebbe. Rebbe was saying this Mishnah. Rebbe says, "V'have mechashev hefsid mitzvah keneged schara." Somebody should calculate, and he should take into cheshbon the loss that he's going to suffer from doing a mitzvah, the perceived loss, keneged schara, against the reward. With schar avera, and the perceived reward, the gain, the benefit from doing an avera, keneged hefseda. Measure that against the loss that you get from doing the avera. Now, what Rebbe means over here is, it happens that a person is confronted with a mitzvah that he wants to do. So a person wants to go do a mitzvah. He's going to buy daled minim. He's going to buy his lulav and esrig. Or he's going to buy shmura matzah for Pesach. Now, shmura matzah for Pesach, I think this past year was anywhere between $23 and even $40 or $50 a pound, depending on what you bought and who you bought it from. Baby lamb chops cost less than hand shmura matzah does. So somebody takes a look and he says, this mitzvah, achilas matzah, I want to do it behidur, I want to do it in a beautiful way, and I want to eat hand shmura matzah, and it's going to cost me a fortune. It's $23 a pound, $30 a pound, $35 a pound. He looks at daled minim, and he says, I want to buy a lulav and esrig, hadassim, aravos, I want to get a beautiful esrig, I have to buy for myself, I have to buy for my children, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg. And then the sukkah, I also have to spend money on building the sukkah. And it's Yom Tov. I'm going to buy some beautiful Yom Tov food and wine, etc., etc. So this is all costing me a fortune. Then maybe somebody needs a chesed. Maybe somebody needs a place to be for Yom Tov. How much is it going to cost me to have extra guests? Or it could be any other mitzvahs. Somebody has to buy tefillin. As a person has, Baruch Hashem, a son who's being bar mitzvah, he has to go buy him tefillin. He wants to buy him beautiful tefillin. Tefillin are not cheap. Tefillin are expensive. So a person looks and he says, look at what this mitzvah is going to cost me. This mitzvah is going to cost me a fortune. So a person looks and he says, there's hefsid mitzvah. There's a loss that I'm going to suffer from the mitzvah. Says the Tana, having mechashev hefsid mitzvah, make a cheshbon and take a look at the perceived loss that you're going to have from this mitzvah. Keneged schara. Weigh that against the eternal dividends that the Kiyum HaMitzvah is going to pay. This world is a temporal world. You're here today, you're gone tomorrow. And the truth is, it really is that way. Nobody knows how long they're here. And even if somebody lives a very long life, so somebody has arichas yamim v'shanim, he lives a long life, what is that against eternity? You're Mekayim HaMitzvah, you do a mitzvah, there are eternal rewards, eternal dividends that you get from doing that mitzvah. The schar that you get in Olam Haba is not temporal, that's eternal. And what type of reward is it? It's a reward that's going to make everything else pale in comparison. So when you're worrying about the so to speak, hefsid mitzvah, don't worry about the hefsid mitzvah. If you really want to make a cost-benefit analysis, then what you have to do is you have to look at your perceived loss from the mitzvah, the $1,000 that you're going to spend, and weigh that against the rewards that you're going to get for doing the mitzvah. That's one calculation. The next calculation is the opposite. The Tana says, Schar Avera Keneged Seda. Somebody has a taiva. Somebody's tempted to do an Avera. There's an Avera that's staring him in the face, and he really, really, really has a desire to go be over on that Avera. He wants to do that transgression. Why does he want to do it? obviously there's some kind of perceived benefit that he's going to get from it. It could be physical pleasure, it could be kavod, it could be honor. Somebody has a juicy piece of lashon hara that he wants to go tell people, and he's going to be the guy who has the scoop. Everybody's going to look at him. He's the guy in the know. He's going to get 5 minutes of kavod, and the eternal price that he's going to pay for that speech of lashon hara, is it worth it? A physical desire. Somebody has a physical desire for something that's forbidden to him. So in his mind, he conjures up. The truth is that 90% of the physical desires and the physical lusts that we have, they're really based on imagination. The desire for the thing is usually much more potent than the pleasure that you're really going to get. The imagined pleasure, you sit and you build palaces in the sky, that this is going to be so pleasurable. This is going to be something that's going to be so unbelievable. When you get it, you find out it really isn't that way. So somebody builds this whole palace in the sky of what this pleasure is going to be like. How long is that pleasure going to last? Pleasure is going to last a few minutes. The pleasure is going to last an hour. What is it already? And against that, how long are you going to pay the price? The eternal payment that you're going to make in Olam HaEmes, in the next world, when you're going to come, that's eternal. That stain, that blemish on your neshama, on your soul, that's not going away. That's going to stay there. So you're tempted to do something that's forbidden for a few minutes or sometimes even a few seconds of pleasure. What is it? 5 minutes from now, it's going to be forgotten. If not 5 minutes from now, tomorrow it's going to be forgotten. Next week, next month, even a year, it's going to be forgotten. You're not going to have it anymore. Yet the payment, the price that you're going to pay for that few seconds of pleasure when you did an avera, that payment, the payment plan doesn't end. It's not like, the phone companies where you pay off the phone eventually, or the car payments. This is a payment that doesn't end. So it's not worth it. Now, of course, there's another thing that I would mention, which is when we speak about the hefsid mitzvah. Somebody's worrying about what is the mitzvah going to cost him. There is no hefsid mitzvah. I think the Tana over here is talking to somebody who's stuck in a thought pattern that he can't creep out of. In other words, he really thinks that there is a loss from doing a mitzvah. If you're going to go to him and you're going to try to preach to him, listen, you're not going to lose anything. Who gave you the $1,000? The Rabbeinu Shalom gave you the $1,000. So you think that because you're going to spend the $1,000 on Kiyam HaMitzvah, you think that's going to cost you? You're doing something for the Rabbeinu Shalom. You think the Rabbeinu Shalom is not going to take care of you. But that's a hard lesson. Now you're already getting into deeper conversation about Emunah and B'tachon. And that sometimes is not for the moment when the person has the struggle. The person who has the struggle at that moment, what you have to show him is that his cost-benefit analysis is off. You have to just show him at the moment. Don't worry about the price, because the reward that you get is going to be worth it. But the truth is that there's another discussion that has to be had, which is it's not going to cost you to do mitzvahs. It's not going to cost you. Ultimately, Bari Olam takes care of you. Bari Olam is the one that gives you everything that you have, and Bari Olam is going to take care of you. It's a beautiful story from Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzaddik V'Kadosh L'Vracha. Many years ago, he was at the Aguda convention. And every year, from what I understand, I never attended an Aguda convention, but from what I understand, every year they make an appeal for the Aguda. They make an appeal for funds for the Aguda. And back then, I'm going back, I think this was in the 60s, they made an appeal, and they had a raffle. And the grand prize for the raffle was $500. Now that alone tells you it must have been in the 60s. It couldn't have been recently. So the grand prize was $500. All right. Rav Moshe Zecher Tzaddik V'Kadosh L'Vracha was there, and he was the one who spoke for the appeal. And when he spoke, he said, you should know, when you give money to tzedakah, you're not giving anything away. When you give money to tzedakah, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives it back. Eventually you get it back. It doesn't mean that you spend $500 and immediately you get it back, But like my Rebbe, Reb Ruven Zal Sein Gesund, always says, there are many, many ways that the Rebbeinu Shalom gives you money back. One way is the car is the great equalizer. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to have a little bit less money, the transmission goes. The Rebbeinu Shalom wants you to have more money, you don't see the mechanic for 3 months. So there's plenty of ways that the Rebbeinu Shalom gives you money back. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives you money back, you go to buy something, you find out it's on sale. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives you money back that you don't need to buy. Things last longer than they would. You always have that guy who has something, the fellow who has the car that has 300,000 miles on it. And you ask him, how did you do it? He says, I don't know, I give it oil changes. But I also give oil changes, and yet my car broke down. So what is it? The Rebbeinu Shalom wants this guy to have money. When the Rebbeinu Shalom wants somebody to have money, he has money. So Rav Moshe said, you give money to tzedakah, it comes back. Somebody got up after the appeal, and he said, I'm pledging $500 to the Aguda in honor of Rav Moshe's speech. All right. That night, Motzei Shabbos, after Shabbos was over, they made the drawing for the raffle. Who do you think won the $500? The fellow who pledged the $500 in honor of Rav Moshe's speech. So he pledged the $500, he got the $500 back. So there is no such thing really as a hefsid mitzvah. There's a hefsid mitzvah momentarily. I'm not saying you have to put your hand in your pocket and you have to take the money out and you spend the money and you might feel the pinch for a while. Eventually, the scales even out. The Rebbeinu Shalom takes care of the people that are aduk to him, the ones that are attached to the Rebbeinu Shalom, who do the Rebbeinu Shalom's ratzon. The Rebbeinu Shalom takes care of them. So there really is no hefsid mitzvah. And one other thing that I would say is that for this lesson in the Mishnah, that you have to make this calculation, one of the things that's necessary for it is it has to be real to a person that there is an einish, there is a punishment that you get for doing an avera, and there is a schar, there is reward that you get for doing a mitzvah. That has to be real to a person. It's not something that we just talk about, that, oh yeah, you do a mitzvah, you get schar. The Rebbeinu Shalom ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekapeach schar kol beria. Somebody does mitzvahs, the Rebbeinu Shalom gives him schar. Somebody does an avera, kol sheyomer she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu vatran. Anybody who says that the Rebbeinu Shalom he looks away from averas and you're not going to get an einish, yisvatru ma'ohi. He should be, he's giving up on himself. The Rebbeinu Shalom does not give up on averas. A person could do tshuva. A person could repent, a person could do tshuva, and the Rebbeinu Shalom could give him slicha v'chapara. There's always a way out. But the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't give freebies. There's a cheshbon, like the Mishnah is going to say. Everything is written down. There's no shikha. There's no pulling the wool over the Rebbeinu Shalom's eyes. The Rebbeinu Shalom knows everything and he doesn't forget things. So there is a price to pay. There's a reward to get for mitzvahs and there's a price to pay for averos. But a person has to feel that. He has to understand it and it has to be real to him. And that brings me to another vart of Rav Moshe's. Rav Moshe says, we have a pasuk in Parshas, where did it go? In Parshas Nitzavim. We have a pasuk, Perek Lamed, pasuk Yutes. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Ha'idoisi bachem hayoim es hashamayim v'sa'aretz. Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Klal Yisrael, I'm calling today the shamayim, the heavens, and the aretz, the earth, that they should be witnesses. They should be witnesses that you have the Torah, you have Bechira, you have a choice to do mitzvahs, you have a choice to do averis. If you'll do mitzvahs, you'll get schar. If you'll do averis, then you'll get punishments. And I'm calling as witness the Shamayim and the Aretz. Rashi says, why did Moshe Rabbeinu call Shamayim and Aretz as witnesses? Why the heavens and the earth? So Rashi says over here, Amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom says to Klal Yisrael, Histaklu b'shamayim, look at the shamayim, look at the heaven, shebarasi l'shamesh eschem, that I created to serve you. Shema shinu es midasam, did it ever change the way it does things? Shema loy ola gilgal achama min hamizrach v'heir l'chal ha'olam, did it ever happen that the sun didn't come up in the east and then go and shine on the entire world? Did it ever switch and come up in the west and then settle in the east? Did it ever decide not to wake up in the morning and to spend the day sleeping and there was no sunrise? Kinyan shenamar v'zarach hashemish u'ba hashemish. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, "Ustaklu ba'aretz shabarasi l'shamish eschem." Look at the world. Look at the earth that I created for you. Shemesh insa midasa. Did it ever change the way it does things? Shemesh ratam oisav tzimcha. Does it happen that you plant crops and nothing happens? Shemesh ratam chitim v'haleisa sa'irim. Did it ever happen that you planted wheat and you got barley? Never happens. The world, the heavens, they do things exactly the way they're supposed to, for centuries, for millennium. Uma elu shenasa, loy l'schar v'loy l'hefsid. The Shamayim and the Aretz don't get a reward and they don't get a punishment. Im zoichen ein mekablim schar. If they do their job, they don't get reward. V'im chaytin ein mekablim paranus. And if they goof off, they don't get punished. And still loy shinu es midasam. But still they never change. Atem, you humans, you Klal Yisrael, shem zechisem, that if you're zoicha and you do mitzvahs, tekabel schar, you'll get schar. V'im chatasem tekabel paranus. And if you do an averi, you get punishment. Alachas kama v'kama. Certainly you should learn the lesson, and certainly you should keep the Torah. Rav Moshe asks, what is this Kal V'chomer? What is this Kal V'chomer? Does the Shemesh have Bechira? Could the Shemesh decide not to wake up in the morning and to sleep late? If you look at your calendar, and your calendar says that Netzachama is 5:35 this morning, does the Shemesh have Bechira that the Shemesh could decide, I don't want to wake up until 6:35? Sorry everybody, Zman Kriya Shema is different than you thought it was. You can't start davening yet because I didn't come up. So what's the Kal V'chomer that we're supposed to learn from the Shemesh? We have Bechira. The Shemesh doesn't have Bechira. Says Rav Moshe, that's a mistake. The Shemesh does have Bechira. If the Shemesh wanted to wake up late tomorrow morning and not rise on time, it could. And if it wants to go around to the west and get up in the west instead of the east, it could. The Shemesh has Bechira. So how come in all of these millenniums since the creation of the world, it's never happened that the sun decided he wants to do something different? Because what the Shemesh doesn't have is a Yetzer Hara. The Shemesh doesn't have a Yetzer Hara that makes a Mesach HaMavdil, that makes a curtain separating between him and the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Shemesh, the sun, has such a clear perception of the Rebbeinu Shalom that he can't possibly make the decision not to rise on time tomorrow morning. The Rebbeinu Shalom told me I gotta rise at Netz. I'm not going to rise at Netz. I can't go against the word of Borei Olam. Forget Bechira. Yeah, technically I could. Like Rav Moshe said, you take somebody up to the top of the Empire State Building, you take him out to the observation deck, and then you make a burning inferno down on the ground. And you tell him, go ahead, jump. Does the person have Bechira to jump? Sure, he has Bechira to jump. If he wants to, he could jump. Is he going to jump? No, he's not going to jump. Why? Because he knows if he jumps, he knows what's going to happen to him. So the Shemesh, does the Shemesh have Bechira? Yeah, the Shemesh has Bechira. But is the Shemesh ever going to decide to wake up late? No. Because he has such a his clear understanding of what it means to go against the tzivoy of Borei Olam is so powerful, it's like the human being on top of the Empire State Building staring down at an inferno 100 plus floors below. The clear perception of what's going to happen if I jump doesn't allow me to make the decision to jump. The clear perception of Borei Olam that the Shemesh has doesn't allow him to go against the tzivoy of Borei Olam. To the Shemesh, it's real. The problem with us is that we have a Mesach HaMavdil. We have a curtain. Our perception of Borei Olam is blurred. The world that we're in, this Olam HaGashmi, Olam Hazeh, it blurs our senses. And that clear perception of what it means to be Mekayim a mitzvah, and what it means to Chas v'Shalom b'Over and Avera, if we would have a clear perception when we're tempted to say a word of Lashon Hara, if we would have a clear perception of what that is to go against the tzivoy of Borei Olam, if we would have a clear perception of that, we could never bring ourselves to say a word of Lashon Hara. We can never bring ourselves to do any Dvar Isser. But the problem is that our perception is blurred. What we have to work on is we have to work on taking that blur away. We have to look around in the world and we have to remind ourselves constantly that everything that we have is from Borei Olam. Everything that we get is from Borei Olam. Everything that we need is in the hands of Borei Olam. we have to work on it and work on it and work on it. And we have to look at our day and we have to say, wow, look at this thing that happened. Look how that worked out. Mamish, siyata d'shmaya. Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how we sharpen our perception of the Ribbono Shel Olam. And it's something that we have to talk about to our children as well. And that goes into what the Mishnah says over here. You have to be able to be mechashev the hefsid mitzvah keneged schara, but you have to have the clear perception that there is schar, and the schar avera keneged hafseda. You have to remember that there's a hefsid for an avera. You have to have that clear perception of it. Okay. Now let's go back into Mishnah Berurah. So we are holding on Reish Mem Ches Amid Aleph. We are in middle of Siman Shin Pei, and we're holding in middle of Sif Daled. So, in order to continue in Sif Daled, we just have to recapture and remind ourselves what Sif Daled was talking about. So we had a halacha like this. The Mechaber had said, let's say you have people who live together in a chutzner. So I used the case where you have 20 people, 20 units in this chutzner, let's say in this bungalow colony. They went there to make it a Eruv Chatzeros, but the problem is that 19 of the residents joined in the Eruv Chatzeros, and one of them neglected to join the Eruv. Now there's no Eruv, because now you have two entities living in the chutzner, and they're not Me'urev, they're not combined. You have the 19 residents who joined in an Eruv, they're now one entity, and then you have the one fellow who did not join in the Eruv. He's a separate entity. He brings down the Eruv. So, what are you going to do to solve the problem? So, in Sif Daled, the case that we were speaking about was where the 19 were mevatel their rishus to the one. So, the 19 came along to the one, and they said, we're mevatel our rishus. We're giving away our ownership, our rights in the chutzner. We're giving it to you. So, now you're going to be the sole entity in the chutzner. Once you're the sole entity in the chutzner, now there's no problem. Now we could be metaltal, or so they think. Said the Mechaber, what's the halacha? He said the halacha is the one person that the 19 were mevatel their rishus to, he is going to be allowed to be metaltal from his house to the chutzner, from the chutzner to his house, because his house and the chutzner are now one rishus. His house is his, and the chutzner was given to him by the other 19 people who were mevatel their rishus to him. So he could be metaltal from his house to the chutzner, from the chutzner to his house, no problem. But what cannot happen over here is he cannot transfer from their houses, from one of their 19 houses to the chutzner, because they never gave him the rishus in their houses. They only gave away their rishus in the chutzner, not in their houses, unless they specify when they do the bittul that they're also being mevatel the rishus over their house. Then the other people, the other 19 people, they're not allowed to be metaltal, not from their houses to the chutzner, because their houses are separate from the chutzner. They were never mevatel their rishus to the one, so their houses still belong to them. The chutzner belongs to the one, so their houses and the chutzner are separate rishuyos. So the 19 cannot transfer, certainly not from their houses to the chutzner, or from the chutzner to their houses, but they also cannot be metaltal from the one's house to the chutzner, or from the chutzner to the one's house. Now, you'll ask me, why not? The house that belongs to that one guy and the chutzner are one rishus. Why can't the other 19 people carry back and forth from his house to the chutzner and vice versa? And the answer is, the reason why that's usher is because we said that the 19 cannot become guests by the one. A rabbim does not become a guest by a yochid. And therefore, since they're not guests, now that they're not guests, should they go into the one's house, take something out of the house, and bring it into the chutzner, so that they're being mishtamish in the chutzner, that means that they're taking their rights in the chutzner back. They never really were mevatel it, they're taking their rights back. And that would create a problem, because now again there are multiple entities in the chutzner, and now the eruv will be invalid. That's what we said yesterday in the beginning of Sif Daled. Now we're holding on Reish Mem Ches Amid Aleph, in middle of the top line. Says the Mechaber, V'hu hadin, the same halacha would hold true, im hayu shnayim levad. Let's say there were only two residents in a chutzner. Now, once there are two residents in a chutzner, automatically you need an eruv chatzeres because they aser on each other. So let's say there were two, and they neglected to make an eruv. So now what are they going to do? So ubitel echad mehem lachaveroi. So now you have Reuven and Shimon living in the chutzner. They realize that they neglected to make an eruv chatzeres. So Reuven tells Shimon, no problem. I'll be mevatel my rishus to you. I'll mevatel my rishus to you. Now you're the only one living in the chutzner. You're the only one who has rights to the chutzner, and now there's no problem. Says the mechaber, ha-mevatel osar af b'shel chaveroi. Reuven, the one who's being mevatel his rishus to Shimon, he is going to be osar to be metaltel not only from his house to the chutzner. So from his house to the chutzner is a problem because when he was mevatel rishus to Shimon, he was only mevatel the rishus that he has in the chutzner to Shimon. He wasn't mevatel the rishus over his house to Shimon. So Shimon owns his house, Shimon's house, and the whole chutzner. So for Shimon to transfer from his house to the chutzner, from the chutzner to his house, is not a problem. But for Reuven can't be metaltel from his own house to the chutzner because his own house is his, and the chutzner is Shimon's. So he can't transfer from his house, but he also cannot transfer from Shimon's house. Even though Shimon's house and the chutzner are one rishus, they both belong to Shimon. Reuven cannot transfer from Shimon's house to the chutzner or from the chutzner to Shimon's house. Why not? So the mechaber is going to say, because again, a yachid does not become a guest by a yachid. I know that sounds funny, but according to this shita in the mechaber, a yachid is not a guest by a yachid. And since he's not a guest, should Reuven go to Shimon's house and start transferring things back and forth between Shimon's house and the chutzner, that means to us that Reuven is taking his rights in the chutzner back. If he's taking his rights in the chutzner back, he's reneging on his bittul, and now once again there are two full-fledged residents in the chutzner. There's Reuven and Shimon, and they don't have an eruv. So now tiltul would be usher. So that's what the mechaber says. The same halacha applies in Ma'ishtayim Levad if there are only two residents, Reuven and Shimon in the chutzner. Ubita lechem b'yam lechaveroi. Reuven was mevatel his rishus to Shimon. Ha-mevatel, the one who's mevatel his rishus, that's Reuven, aser af b'shel chaveroi, is even aser to be metaltel from his friend's house to the chutzner or from the chutzner to his friend's house. It's an even. He's even aser from his friend's house because from his own house he's certainly aser. His house is a different rishus than the chutzner. The chutzner belongs to Shimon. His house belongs to himself, belongs to Reuven. But he's even aser in Shimon's house. Even though Shimon's house and the chutzner are one rishus, he's still aser because by using the chutzner he would be taking his rishus back. The chaveroi mutter af b'shel atzmai. However, Shimon is going to be mutter. Now, in the words of the mechaber, the words of the mechaber literally mean that Shimon is going to be mutter even to transfer from his own house to the chutzner. Now, the Mishnah Berurah is bothered right away. What do you mean even? By saying that he's even mutter to transfer from his house to the chutzner or from the chutzner to his house, it sounds like from Reuven's house, he's certainly mutter. Now, that's not true. He's not mutter. The Shimon is not allowed to transfer from Reuven's house to the chutzner or from the chutzner to Reuven's house. Why? Because Reuven was never mevatel the rishus of his house to Shimon. He was only mevatel the rishus on the chutzner. So Reuven's house still belongs to Reuven, and the chutzner belongs to Shimon. So Shimon's not allowed to transfer from Reuven's house to the chutzner. Because of that, the Mishnah Berurah is going to say that there's actually a typo over here, and it should not say even. It shouldn't say that he's even mutter. It should just say he's mutter, v'chaver mutter b'shel atzmai. Shimon is mutter to transfer back and forth between his own house and the chutzner, because his own house and the chutzner are one rishus. Let's see this inside in the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah is cutting your test. Af b'shel atzmai. Kasvu achrayim. The achrayim say the loy garsin on af, that this word af is a mistake. This word af even should be taken out of the text. The mashma mizeh, because the implication of the word af is the kol shekain b'shal chaveroi, that Shimon is not only mutter to transfer from his own house to the chutzner and vice versa, but certainly he's mutter from Reuven's house, and that's not true. Like the Mishnah Berurah says, it's not true. Tahaha Mechaber Mairi, because over here the Mechaber is giving us a case Shaloi Bitel El Rishus Chatzeroi V'Loi Beisai, where Reuven was only Mevatel the Rishus that he has over his Chatzer, but he wasn't Mevatel the Rishus that he has over his house. Vim Kain, and if so, also Loitzi Beis Chaver LeChatzer. So then Shimon can transfer from Reuven's house to the Chatzer. Reuven's house belongs to Reuven, and the Chatzer belongs to Shimon. And the Chavetz Chaim says, indeed, if you look at old text of the Mishnah Berurah, of the Chavetz Chaim, of the Shulchan Aruch, that's what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. It says Bishel Atzmai. It doesn't say Af. Okay, says the Mechaber weiter. V'chein, similarly, Rabim Shaloi Ervu. Let's say you had 40 residents in a Chatzer, and you have 20 of them joined in an Erev, and 20 of them did not. So v'chein Rabim Shaloi Ervu, shenos derishusam l'Rabim she'ervu. Let's say the 20 that did not join in the Erev were mevatel their rishus to the 20 that did make an Erev. So again, the same halacha is going to be true over here. And that is that the mevatlim, the 20 residents that are being mevatel their rishus, they will not be allowed to transfer, not from their own houses to the chutzner, or from the chutzner to their own houses, and not from the 20 houses that belong to the people that they're being mevatel rishus to. They're not allowed to be mevatel from their houses to the chutzner either. Again, because they, the rabbim, does not become orchim, does not become guests by another rabbim. And therefore, since they're not guests, if they start to use the chutzner, that means that they're taking their rishus of the chutzner back, they're reneging on their bittul rishus, and that would pull down the erev again. And now finally, the Mechaber says, in the middle of the third line, what the rationale for all this is, Lefi shehayachid nasa oireach eitzel harabim, because a yachid can become a guest to eitzel harabim. One person, a singular person, could be considered an oireach, could be considered a guest by a lot of people, but v'rabim eina nasam orchim afilu eitzel harabim. But a rabbim does not become a guest by another rabbim or by a yachid, v'lo hayachid eitzel hayachid. Nor does one yachid alone become a guest by a yachid. Okay. Says the Mechaber weiter. How about shachachu shnayim v'lo ervu? Again, we only have two people. We have three people living in a chutzner. Shachachu shnayim v'lo ervu. We have three people: Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. And Shimon and Levi forgot, and they did not make it Reuven chatzeros together with Reuven. Yecholim levatel rishusam. Shimon and Levi could be mevatel their rishus to Reuven. And now that Shimon and Levi are mevatel their rishus to Reuven, you don't even need it a Reuven chatzeros anymore, because now there's only one entity in the chutzner. So, shachachu shtayim v'lo ervu, if two people neglected to join the erev, and there's only one other person in the chutzner, there are only three people in the chutzner, yecholim levatel rishusam. They could be mevatel their rishus, sheyavatel kol echad mehem rishusay l'chol b'nei chutzner. Each one, Reuven and Shimon, they're each going to have to go be mevatel their rishus to everybody who lives in the chutzner. So over here, so let's see the Mishnah Berurah first. It says the Mishnah Berurah in Eis Kat and Chaf, shachachu shtayim v'lo ervu. If two people forgot to join an erev, ritzaynai loymar. What the Mechaber means to say is the kamay b'yachid shalei erev mahani bittel keinu adin b'yoser. Just like one person could be mevatel his rishus, many people could be mevatel the rishus. Now I gave the case where there are only three people living in the chutzner. The truth is that doesn't have to be the case. There could be 10 people living in the chutzner. 8 of them joined in the Reuven chatzeros. 2 of them forgot to join in the erev. What the Mechaber is telling me over here is, until this point in Sif Daled, we always spoke about where one person forgot to join the erev, and we had two different scenarios. We had one person forgot to join the erev, and now to fix the problem, he's going to be mevatel his rishus to the other 19 residents of the chutzner. Or one person forgot to join the erev, so now the 19 who made the erev will be mevatel their rishus to the one. But in both of these cases, we said that there was one person who forgot to join the erev. Now over here, we're dealing with a case of shachachu shnayim v'lo ervu. Now 2 people forgot to join the erev. So let's say you had 10 people living in the chutzner. 8 of them joined in the Reuven chatzeros. 2 of them did not. The Mechaber is teaching me over here, you shouldn't think that the halacha of being Mavatal Rishus only works when there's one person who has to be Mavatal Rishus. No, even if there are multiple people that have to be Mavatal Rishus, the halacha of Bittul Rishus still works. Now you'll ask me, why do we need to learn that over here? We already see that previously, because previously we spoke about a case where 19 people joined in an Erev, one person did not, and the 19 were Mavatal their Rishus to the one. So over there we already had a case where a Rabbim, where more than one person was Mavatal Rishus. That's true. But the difference is that over there, those 19 are really one. Because over there the case is that the 19 joined in their own Eruvei Chatzeros. So that merged the 19 into one entity. Over here, in this case over here, we're talking about two separate entities. Ruvain forgot to join the Erev, and Shimon forgot to join the Erev. The Mechaber wants to teach me that even though there are two completely separate entities that forgot to join the Erev, Bittul Rishus works. If they want to, they can be Mavatal Rishus, as long as they're Mavatal Rishus to everybody. So Shakhu Shtay v'lo Yervu Yichem Levatal Rishusam Sheyavat Kolechad Be'em Rishusam L'chol B'nei HaChotzer Bein Mevatlim L'Rabim Sheyarvu. This could work in whether the two people that forgot to join the Erev are being Mevatal their Rishus to a Rabbim, to a multitude of people who did make an Erev. But what we have to remember is that when Ruvain and Shimon go to be Mevatal their Rishus in the Chotzer, they have to go to each other one of the people living in the Chotzer, and they have to specifically be Mavatal Rishus to each one. Or you could have many people that are being Mavatal their Rishus to the one person who didn't make the Erev. But you can't be Mavatal Rishus to two people that didn't make an Erev. In other words, let's say you had 10 people living in the Chotzer, 8 of them joined in the Erev, and 2 of them did not. So now the 8 who joined in the Erev want to go over to one of the 2 people that did not join the Erev and say, we're being Mavatal our Rishus to you. That you can't do. Why can't you do that? So the Mechaber is going to go on to explain. The reason you can't do that is because what are you doing? What are you doing? You're not solving anything. Ruvain and Shimon both forgot to join the Erev. So now let's say Ruvain goes over to the people who made the Erev and says, I'm Mavatal my Rishus to you. Okay, very nice. So Ruvain now merged himself together with the group that made an Erev. But there's still Shimon out there who did not merge himself with anybody. So Shimon is still answering on everybody. It's very nice that Ruvain got himself included in the Erev, but what are we going to do with Shimon? Shimon is still going to answer on the Chotzer. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Cotton Chaf Aleph, L'chol Echad, the 2 people that want to be Mavatal Rishus, they have to specifically be Mavatal Rishus to every member of the Chotzer, U'kamosh Kasub Seif Aleph, like we saw earlier in Seif Aleph. And the Mechaber said this works whether the 2 people are being Mavatal their Rishus to one person, Le'echad Shalai Erev, Pirish, Shalai Hayu B'Chotzer, Kim Shloisha Anoshim, there were only 3 people in the Chotzer, V'shom Echad Behem Le'erev, nobody made an Erev, U'lahachi, Kishebitlo Oisam Hashnayim, Rishusam La'shlishi, now when the 2 will go ahead and be Mavatal Rishus to the other one, Nimsa Shechatzer Shayachadu. Now this Chotzer becomes a Chotzer that belongs to one person, Ve'in Tzarech Erev, it doesn't need an Erev at all. U'chumavur Be'veis Yosef. Okay. Or it could also work, right, 2 people could be Mavatal Rishus to one. But you can't be Mavatal Rishus to 2 people that didn't join the Erev. So again, you have 10 people living in the Chotzer, 8 of them made in a Eruvei Chatzeros and 2 of them did not. If the 8 will go over to one of the 2 and say, I'm Mavatal my Rishus to you. So what did he accomplish? So now, Ruvain and Shimon, those are the 2. So Shimon now has his Rishus in the Chotzer, and also the Rishus of the other 8 people who live in the Chotzer. They were all Mavatal Rishus to me. Very nice to Mavatal Rishus to you. But you still have the other guy who lives here who's answering on you. So, okay. Because in such a scenario, even after the other people are mavatal rishus to the two, heim shnayim, so now you have two. The 8 people were mavatal their rishus to the 2 people who didn't join the Erev. Okay, so now Reuven and Shimon split the chotzer. Reuven and Shimon are going to answer on each other. Says the Mechaber, even if, let's say, the 8 come over to Reuven, and they tell Reuven, listen, we want to be mevatal our rishus to you. Now we know that even after we're mevatal our rishus to you, the chotzer is still going to be aser, because you and Shimon are still going to answer on each other. But we're coming to you, we want to be mevatal our rishus to you on the condition that after we're mevatal our rishus to you, you will take the rishus that we were mevatal to you, and your own rishus, and you'll be mevatal it to Shimon. So now Shimon will be the sole entity in the chotzer, and the chotzer will be mutter. So even if they made such a condition, it still does not work. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Chav Gimel. Even if you did this on the condition that one of them will, after the group is mevatal their rishus to one of them, that one will then go ahead and be mevatal his rishus to another one, so then there'll only be one entity in the chotzer, still you can't do this. Certainly if they didn't make this condition. Even if it was a case where they just went over to one and they were mevatal the rishus to one, and now that guy went over to the next guy who was mevatal his rishus to him. This does not work. You could be mevatal your own rishus, but you can't be mevatal the rishus that was given to you by somebody else. The kevin de beidna de baltale rishusa loy havale shirusa v'chaser mishom de asri ahadadi. Yeah. The 8 were mevatal the rishus to one, and now they want that one to be mevatal their whole collective rishus to the other one. You can't do that, because Reuven could be mevatal his own rishus to Shimon, but he cannot be mevatal the rishus that he got from the other residents of the chotzer to Shimon. Why? The kevin de beidna de batale rishusay lo yahavale sharyusa b'chotzer mishum da asri adadi. At the time, what happened? Let's say the other 8 residents of the chotzer were mevatal their rishus to Reuven. Did that bittul rishus accomplish anything? No, because the chotzer is still aser. Since it didn't accomplish anything, ishtakach de bittul lo yahani midi v'lo kanile. It turns out that bittul rishus, when the other members of the chotzer were mevatal the rishus to Reuven, since it had no effect, it was worthless, and it's as if it didn't take place. Therefore, Reuven cannot transfer the collective rishus to Shimon. So that certainly doesn't work. Even if the other residents said to Reuven up front, we're doing this with the understanding and on the condition that you are then going to be mevatal our collective rishus to Shimon. We don't say that they made him a shliach to do this. Since the bittul doesn't work for the first one, they never got anything to transfer to somebody else. What's he saying here? Yeah, I'll discuss that in a second. What the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here is like this. Let's go mikala lakavid. Let's go from simpler to more complicated. What we said until now was, let's say you had 10 residents living in the chotzer. 8 of them joined in an Erev. 2 of them did not. Reuven and Shimon did not join the Erev. So the 8 want to go to Reuven, and the 8 are mevatal their rishus to Reuven. So now you have Reuven, who has his own rishus, and the rishus of the other 8. Now the Erev is still aser, because you have Reuven and Shimon. Now Reuven wants to go and be Mavatal, his Rishus and the Rishus of the other 8 to Shimon. That we said doesn't work. Why does that not work? Because since when the 8 were Mavatal their Rishus to Reuven, the Chatzar remained Aser, so that Bittul Rishus did not accomplish anything. Therefore we look at it as it was an ineffective Bittul. That Bittul never worked. Reuven never got anything, so he can't give it to Shimon. That's true even if when the other 8 were Mavatal their Rishus to Reuven, they did it with a specific Tanai, with a specific condition, that we're being Mavatal our Rishus to you, so that you should go be Mavatal to Shimon. Maybe we would think that that works. No, that still doesn't work. Again, since at the time that the Bittul Rishus from the 8 to Reuven was done, it didn't make the Chatzar mutter, it was an ineffective Bittul, and it's as if it never took place. However, the one thing that the Mishnah Berurah is saying could work is, let's say you had 3 people living in a Chatzar, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. They didn't make it a Reuven Chatzeris. Levi goes over to Shimon, and he tells Shimon, I'm Mavatal my Rishus to you. Now, for Shimon to go be Mavatal his Rishus and Levi's Rishus to Reuven, that we say can't work. Because since when Levi was Mavatal his Rishus to Shimon, it was ineffective. So now it can't work. Shimon didn't get anything to transfer to Reuven. But what would work is, if Levi was Mavatal his Rishus to Shimon, and then Levi realized, hey, that's not going to work. So he went and he's Mavatal his Rishus to Reuven, and Shimon is also Mavatal his Rishus to Reuven, that would work. Okay, that concludes Siman Shin Pei. This was somewhat of a complicated Siman. Hashem, tomorrow we'll go forward. Even though I'm making Chassidut tomorrow night, I would hope to record a shir in the morning, so hopefully we'll have shir tomorrow beginning Siman Shin Pei Aleph. Thank you for listening.